These experiences caused me to reflect on the role of language, the way words, whilst powerful in shaping and constructing perceptions of reality, also impose limitations, creating dualities and distinctions. Through dismantling language, it seemed temporarily possible to transcend these constraints, facilitating access to alternative ways of experiencing and knowing.
I'd be interested to hear more of your understanding of play and how that relates to this sort of deconstruction of language. I don't remember how you put it, but like breaking down language to reach another experience.
Well, I think I came to it through the practice of speaking in tongues. I realized that actually a certain shift happened in my consciousness where I became unself-conscious, and I became more conscious of being more receptive and intuitive to hearing inspiration or, direction from God. And I felt that openness of losing self-consciousness also gave me the ability to create in a way which was beyond the way I would have created because I used to be a songwriter before I started doing this, and I would create in a way that was more an emulation of the type of music that I was inspired by. And I moved from being someone who emulated styles of music to creating from a place of being a passenger. And that really interested me of how we access play states and how speaking in tongues functioned as a mode of improvisation. So the same way free improvisation could access similar states as a language without words, there was something that happened in our consciousness when we practiced speaking in tongues that had the same effect on consciousness, from us being in the driving seat to being in the passenger seat.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned speaking in tongues, because that's actually what I was going to mention. I'm really interested on that idea of play as well. It's fascinating. But thank you for that. That was brilliant. I was going to ask about after these ecstatic states where you're removed from consciousness, what about reflections afterwards? When you look at what's been produced in these moments, I wonder if you could speak about that, and particularly how that might relate to God being present in the process.
Well, I think when I began my study, I was trying to examine the difference between an aesthetic experience and a more mystical experience. And I was looking at musical effect, how music could, because I'm a worship leader in my church as well, and also as an artist and free improviser, I wondered how, are these experiences common to man that happen in the church? And if they are, what does that mean theologically? So I just was practicing the states and examining them. I was doing the processes and then reflecting on where did the shift in my consciousness happen, how did it happen, what did that produce? And I think I came from a position of always wanting to be in that state of ecstatic, revelatory states, to realizing that biblically that was not the full picture, that, even Paul asks us, should I pray in tongues? or should I pray with my mind? And he says we should do both. And I feel like it's that Stephen Felix Jaeger talks about that tension between, or the play between the deconstruction of the spirit that he calls, that happens, you know, through speaking in tongues and things like that, but the formation of the word, which for me felt very much that without a form, like form and freedom have to be held in tension with each other. So the reason for me making this film is because in the beginning of my study, I only wanted to improvise and be in these kind of intangible states that didn't really have any form, and they had no real purpose apart from the process being a kind of transformative state in itself. But I realized that actually biblically we need to have form and freedom in order to communicate. So the film was made as a kind of end result of my examination of these states to bring together form, communicating, and freedom. Is it time for one more?
Question, I think. Yeah, time for one more.
I was wondering, historically there's been this distinction, or maybe difficulty of bringing together these two sides of artistic expression and then the reception of it, or being the beholder or listener. How do you fit, for lack of a better word, the audience or somebody who is witnessing your art into that same question of the flow? Is it accessible to a beholder, what you are doing? Or does one have to be an artist to be entering that play and that flow?
I think my quest in making the film was to communicate the states somehow. So the improvisation music, I tried to use or frame moments that I experienced that state myself. Mm-hmm. And my hope was that in experiencing it myself, it would be communicable. And most of the images were made through a similar process of either attentive looking, and the attentiveness and speaking in tongues, I feel that have a strong relation as well, because speaking in tongues has the activity of bringing you into the present moment. And so that attentiveness as a form of prayer, I hoped would be accessible for an audience in the same way. I'm still not sure, you know, how successful that is. And I think maybe artists would understand this film. I mean, it often plays more in galleries as a kind of aesthetic object, rather than even with the words not being able to be understood. You know, it's just an aesthetic object. So I feel I don't know how communicable it is, but maybe the better people get as an artist, or I get as an artist, my skill in being able to communicate those states would improve.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that's all we'll have time for.
Philosopher Martin Buber speaks of thou saying, being fully present. He says all genuine art making involves this attentive practice, this state of fully receptive presence. Painter and teacher Robert Henry writes, "We make our discoveries of technique while in the state, because then we are clear-sighted.